Your life experience, good or bad, is a gift when you share it with others. At Taxi Chronicles, we allow real riders with real stories to share their gift. So hopefully this episode will intrigue, enhance or inspire you. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Morning. Yes, we're back with another rider, another episode. Today we have a lovely lady all the way from across the pond, and believe it or not, I wouldn't have bet money that she was a New Yorker, but anyway, she's going to tell us about her life in London, why she came here and how she sees this interesting city compared to her own, or her old home we should say. Nice to have you here today. Please hold that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what brought you to London?
What brought me to London? Well, I was studying abroad initially, so I was doing an internship placement, which was quite prestigious, and then I met a man, and I fell in love, and he kept me in London, so I ended up coming back and to stay and to be with him and to study here and to fall in love with the city.
Okay, what were you studying?
So I have 5 degrees. I have 3 undergraduate degrees in journalism, psychology, and international studies. And I have a dual master's with distinction in advertising and public relations.
Okay, that's heavyweight then. So your profession is today?
I'm a publicist, yeah. So I do brand work, brand management, anything and all in between.
Okay. So you've only ever worked in England then?
No, so I've been working since I was about 16. So when I was 18, I ran my own marketing company back in New York, which was amazing. Learned a lot. Was managing offices of probably about 30 staff at 18 years old. Then I was studying, so in between studies, I would do work placements. So I worked in Washington, D.C., New York City, and then, of course, here in London.
Okay. How does it compare between the two? Culture, work-wise?
Culture, work-wise, it's they're similar, but they're also worlds apart. So I think it's when I first came into the English culture, it's learning how to manage the English sense of humor, the English way of life. Americans are very much more outspoken and loud and driven. In a very almost abrupt way. Whereas with the English, you have to do it in a little bit more of a subtle way and a gentle way. So it's learning the mannerisms between the two cultures.
It's like a dance.
Yes, every day is a dance, and you get a little bit better.
Yeah, okay, that's good. What would you say that we can learn from our cousins over there?
What the English can learn from the Americans? Well, so New Yorkers are their own breed of American, but I would say from New Yorkers, it's just to go for what you want and be very upfront about it. So the English will say things, but they'll say it in a much quieter mannerism and kind of at the end or in the back. Whereas the New Yorkers or Americans, you'll know up front what you're getting and what you want. So when I first started working in the workforce here, they would say you're very forward, you're very abrupt, you just go for it, and that's not how we kind of work culturally here. And I think if we found a balance between the two, it would be a really good work environment.
Did it take you a long time to learn to adjust?
Yes. Yes, it has taken a lot of just incidents, I suppose. You fall and you get back up. You learn how to navigate through the new culture, but it's everybody has also been welcoming. It's not that the English aren't welcoming. It's just learning how to transition into the new way of life.
Okay, that's interesting. What do you think Americans can learn from us?
A lot. I think the English are, and once again, I didn't work so much of my higher level full-time work has been here in England, so I didn't do full-time positions back in America. They were much more short-term placements. But I think here in England, the culture is also a bit more friendly in an opposite way. So we go out to the pubs after work, and we have these friendships within the workspace. And in America, I didn't find that as much. Could it be because I was, not a full-time employee? Potentially, but that could be something that the Americans could take on.
Have you traveled quite a bit since you've been here?
I've traveled prior to being here. So as a teenager, I used to work for a travel company.
Okay.
So I have been to about 30 countries at this point. When I finished my initial program here in England, I went back to America for about a year to finalize my studies. But prior to going back, I backpacked Europe. So I did an entire month backpacking Europe on my own, which was phenomenal. It was a great experience. I highly recommend everybody do it once in their lifetime.
So safety wasn't an issue at any time?
Safety is always somewhat of an issue. I think when traveling on your own, especially as a female, it's putting in these precautions. So having somebody know where you're going to be or you're expected to be at times. So I had pre-planned the trip with the help of my mum at the time. So she knew what city I was going to be in, whereabouts, when I should be taking the next train, so she can kind of touch points with me and stay with me. It's also just making friends along the way. You're never really alone, even when you're alone. It's just getting to know people. Everybody's a stranger until you meet them. So when you stay in hostels, being friendly with people, going on group tours, exploring, but being conscious of your surroundings.
That's interesting. You must have learned to be a good judge of character.
I've always been able to really identify people. I think I pick up on energies quite well, but it has helped. Traveling has massively helped with, once again, just seeing people and recognizing mannerisms and going, do I want to participate in that situation? Yes or no. So yeah, I think it has helped.
What would you say you've learnt overall, career and everything, so you've been a successful lady, and you probably still are, that you wish you knew when you had started?
In career?
In everything.
In life? Don't take it so seriously. Nobody gets out alive anyway, so... So to everything's a learning experience. You're never going to be perfect the first time around. Nobody's perfect. So I think for myself, I was always very tough on myself and wanting to, get to the next stages and be the best at what I was doing, and which is fabulous because it's put me in this wonderful place in my life. But at the same time, to have fun along the way and to understand nobody's perfect and you will learn as you go. You are where you're meant to be.
You've got a lot of degrees.
A couple.
Why so many?
So once again, I think it has to do with this perfectionism thing. For me, it was if I was going to spend the money, because I received a scholarship to a university, full ride, and decided to decline it, decided not to go. So I went to Penn State University, which is quite a big school, but it also came with a big price tag. So for me, if I was going to do it, I was going to do it completely. So I got my undergraduates there, and the credits basically your lower level credits can account for multiple degrees. So that's your gym credits, your basic science credits. It's not until you get into your higher level courses that they are specific to the degree. So my final year, my senior year, because in America we do 4 years at university, I took 18 credits, which most of my friends were taking, 6 credits and out at the bars drinking all afternoon. So I did spend a bit more time in the classroom than I did kind of the social aspect. But for me, it was if I was spending the money, I was going to do it. So I did.
Yeah. I heard the degrees out there are very expensive, like 100 grand.
More than that, probably double that.
Yeah,
but at least for me, it was.
Yeah, I suppose you got all those credits, those units, or you were doing. Yeah, okay. Sorry.
That's all right.
Nightlife. I know New York's really bustling on nightlife.
Yes.
What's that like out there? Give us a taste.
I would say it is very similar to London. Once again, I was quite young, so there were certain places I could get into, certain places I couldn't get into when I was in New York, because I moved to London when I was 20. So 21's the legal drinking age in America, in New York City. But it reminds me of, so I would go out to like New Year's Eve parties, and kind of I would go party in the city for big events, and it is very similar to your Camdens, your Shoreditches. You know, every nightclub is very similar. So yeah, I think they have a lot of similarities in that case.
What would be your advice to an American or a New Yorker who's coming to London to live?
To live, to live and work. Well, I guess for me, it's a bit laughable now, but just to understand the British a bit and to take it all kind of with a grain of salt. So for example, when I first went into work placement here, I had a colleague who's absolutely lovely. We're still friends, but she would allow me to call journalists and ask for G off. And the reason was, it's Jeff in English, but we don't have starting with a G. The spelling isn't what we spell it in America. So I had no idea I was asking for a Jeff. So I kept asking for a G off, and they kept hanging up on me. And finally, when I finished the placement, probably 6 months later, in hysterics, she said to me, "Oh, we just enjoyed listening to you try to." And I was like, "Why would you do this to me? Why would you let me struggle through?" I was like, "Why do we put X's at the end of emails?" It baffled me. I said, "What are these X's? Why is everybody putting these X's? They're kisses." But it's just these small cultural things that you have to you have to take with a grain of salt. You will learn them, it will come, but don't be embarrassed that you don't know these things. I mean, I nearly showed up with 100 pairs of wellies and 6 raincoats. Do I own a raincoat now? No, I never use a raincoat. But I guess it's your perception of what the English are and what London will be versus what it actually is.
Do you have quite a few siblings?
So I'm technically an only child, but I have 2 step siblings. So my mum was remarried when I was, probably like 17, 18. Okay. And I have a younger stepbrother and a younger stepsister.
So you've really gone out there and gone and got what you want.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been that way since I was a little girl, though. And that is probably a very American trait of mine. If you want it, go for it. What's meant to find you, what's meant to be will be. So you have to put the energy towards it.
What do you think about politics?
I think politics are a very complicated situation. I'm not somebody who is extremely passionate about politics. I'm more passionate about people, and I'm more like who a person is, how they act, how they are as a leader, and similarly with specific topics. So I have very passionate viewpoints on specific topics, and then I let my politics play into that versus picking a party and shoehorning myself into that party.
Okay. With your profession now, one of the things we pride ourselves on this podcast is asking experienced people like yourself how you got into the profession and what it's like. Because when a young person gets in the car, we can always say to them, "Oh, is that what you're interested in? Listen to episode so-and-so."
Yeah.
And they can get a real life thing and make an informed decision whether it's worth spending £27,000 to study in that profession. So I ask you, the route you took to get into the profession that you are today, is there a quicker way of doing it or a more cost-effective way?
So to be a publicist, you do not need a degree. You do not need a degree. I think now, being somebody who has 5 degrees, they're absolutely useless. I think I've learned a lot getting a degree. I've taken neuroscience courses. I've learned about sex and sensuality. I've taken anthropology. I have a wealth of knowledge across many different planes. Is it worth £200,000? No, it's not. I could have gone into work placement. I could have traveled Europe for 6 months and gained equal amounts of knowledge, and probably been more culturally diverse than I am now. If you're going to become, a lawyer or a doctor, obviously, if you're in a specific field, you have to go get the degree. There's certain needs within that. But something like communications, to be a publicist, you don't need the degree. I also fell into my degree. I originally wanted to be a journalist, actually, and I was taking the journalism courses, and just ended up falling. They gave me this placement in a PR agency here in London when I had applied for this program, and I was dropped into it and fell in love and absolutely loved it. And PR is an industry that's very hard to get into. So I did a lot of, unfortunately, this is a whole nother topic, but a lot of unpaid internships, a lot of work placement, a lot of emailing people and saying, can I help you? Can I work for you? Just communicating, networking, talking with people. I mean, I escorted Diane von Furstenberg at an event in New York. And the whole reason I was given that opportunity was my CEO at the time. I befriended her and said, I want to get into fashion. I want to work in fashion. Can you help me? And she said, yeah, I sit on a board with Diane von Furstenberg, amazing designer. Let me put you in contact. So it's about just networking, really.
Yeah, and be willing to do the work.
It's hard work. I will not, there are, if people go into, especially fashion, I've worked across, all kind of criteria of PR. So I've done nonprofit, I've done fashion, I've done, big brand, consumer, beauty, anything. I've dipped my toes in all of it. But a lot of people see like the Sex and the City, Samantha Jones, and go, it's all fun, it's all glamour, it's all parties. And there is that aspect, but there's also very long weekends. There's sometimes you are working, nights, you're always on call, you're always building relationships. It is a tough industry as well. It's not just parties. So it is recognizing and getting into it, your junior years, you are sometimes getting coffees, you are sometimes doing things that are not necessarily fun, and learning the ropes of the industry, because there's a lot to learn. Not to deter people, I love it. I love the work I do. I think it can be very impactful, but it's not just parties every day.
Yeah, I understand. There's a lot of most jobs are about dealing with people.
Yeah, as a publicist, you are always, and you're dealing with people, not only representing yourself, and if you're at an agency or with a brand, the agency or the brand, but also the bigger client. So if you're working for a specific brand, you are the voice and the tonation of that brand. So that's a lot of pressure to make sure when you're speaking with consumers, when you're speaking with journalists, when you're speaking, when you're building out press releases or tone of voice for this brand, that you are doing it on their behalf. So yeah.
Okay, that's good. So, in summary, you've been a great guest.
Thank you.
The characteristics that somebody needs to be a publicist are: you need good with people, hardworking, and willing to work for nothing at the start to get to where you need to get to.
It varies. So PR, and I did my dissertation on this slightly. So I wrote my dissertation on the lack of inclusivity of disability and basically diversity in public relations, and the industry is now starting to bring on more diverse people, but they are needed. We need people with backgrounds in everything, because we then gain better perspective on how to roll out a brand to a wider consumer audience. So you do need to be driven. You do need to have certain criteria, but don't think just because you aren't the ideal, or what they would say, the cookie cutter type of a PR person, that doesn't mean you can't do the work. You really just have to be passionate about what you do, and then push forward into working in the industry.
I did an interview the other day. I can't remember the lady's role, but she deals with like marketing and social media.
Okay, yeah.
And she said they used to have 500 people, influencers on their account.
Yeah.
Now they have 700. Yeah, she deals with a makeup brand. I can't remember what makeup brand. There's 700 people they're dealing with daily.
Yes.
Paying them individually to put makeup on and do their thing. Got enough followers and a lot of things. So I suppose that work is being done for them.
For influencers?
No, not for influencers. I mean, for somebody of your position, if you could get as many influencers as possible, then it's easier to do that work. Do you see what I mean?
Yes and no. So influencers are a part of PR. We do work with influencers, but so that's a whole nother conversation. Working with influencers, you need to, one, they're building relationships with the influencers, but as well, what is the influencer's engagement? What is their background story? What do they support? How does that tie back into the brand? Influencers are kind of their own little niche section of a much wider conversation within PR. But it's not easy. Influencer marketing is not easy. I will not say in a second that it is. They really have to know their content on the influencer side, how to create content, and then on the marketing side, they have to know how to pick and choose the right people for the right job.
Well, thanks a lot for that.
No worries.
My last question is this: what's the impact you want to have on the world?
What is the impact I want to have on the world? There's nothing specific. I just want to do something that makes a long-lasting difference. And I think when I was younger, I thought that was being a celebrity or, doing something big. But in reality, as I start to get older, another year, I find on a micro scale it works as well. It's, having conversations with people in your day-to-day life, and working with those around you, that can make a huge difference in the world, actually, by just helping lift others around you as you lift yourself and working together. So that is how I'm currently making an impact on the world. Will I do it at a bigger scale at some point? Potentially, hopefully, we will see.
Okay. Well, happy birthday.
Thank you.
And thanks a lot for the interview.
No worries.
And we wish you well.
Thank you.
We hope you liked that Taxi Chronicles interview. Don't forget to share and subscribe to get the latest episode. Ever considered investing in the continent with the fastest growing economies and population on Earth? The same continent that holds 30% of the world's known natural resources. Listen to our sister podcast, Africa Investor Stories, where you hear real investors with real stories from around the world share their experience of investing in Africa. We post Monday and Thursday at 10 a.m. British Standard Time.